and welcome to my market update. Today I have with us Maria Caprito, who's a local practicing law attorney that's been in the business now over 21 years practicing law, just to discuss with us some of the key points about probate. And Maria, thanks for coming today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And some of the questions we just want to cover, just some of the basic things about probate. I guess number one, probably more importantly, just why is probate needed or required?
Typically, probate's required because someone died,
Right.
and that's the most important thing,
Right.
and there are assets in their name that you cannot pass on to the heirs of the estate without going through the probate process. So when that happens, that's generally when you either have a house or assets in excess of $150,000 in value. That's when a probate is required.
Okay. So if it's under that amount, then a probate would not be.
There's
Okay.
an alternative process that we
really?
could do, right?
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. So the person that's in charge of that probate, obviously you assist that person, but the executor or the administrator that's in charge, what are the things that that are probably the 3 or 4 things that are probably most critical for them in terms of what they have to do?
Their main duty is to what we call marshal the assets. They have
Okay.
to figure out what the assets of the estate are that are subject to probate. And they have to also make sure they have a list of all the creditors that are due money. Those are the top 2 things that are really, really important.
Wow.
Besides the fact that they cannot commingle assets, personal assets with the estate assets. So that's always a really important thing, and they should never pay any creditors or themselves without consulting their attorney.
Okay.
Because if they pay something inappropriately, they could be surcharged. If they pay themselves, the court can charge them interest on the money they received without a court order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And the way you look at me, it almost sounds like that may have happened.
Oh yes, that happens more. People don't understand that there's a lot of orders that have to come from the court before they can do anything.
Sure.
So that's why it's very important to consult your attorney and make sure you know what you're doing. Just don't go off and do it without getting the proper advice.
Right. So that kind of leads me into the question, what are the challenges or pitfalls? But it sounds like some of that's that. Is there any other challenges that are in that process?
No, I mean, the other thing that's very important is making sure that people account for or keep very good records of all the money coming into the estate and all the money spent and receipts for all of that money, because the beneficiaries are entitled to an accounting.
Okay.
And they can waive the accounting, but if they do want the accounting, you're going to want the backup for that to be able to provide that to the court in your report when you go to close the estate.
Okay. Now, I know probate referees are used pretty often. I mean, is that almost 100% of the time? And what's kind of their job in that process?
The probate referee's job is to value assets of the estate.
Okay.
Those are the types of assets that you and I can't value. Like a bank account is dollar for dollar cash.
Okay.
But if you have an investment account or a home
Okay.
or coins that need to be valued, all that kind of those things that we cannot personally value, that's what the probate referee values.
Okay, all right. So, and how does that play into the sale process once they turn around and want to sell that asset? Is there any other requirements that have to be fulfilled?
For when you sell real estate, you have to sell it within 90% of the appraised value that the probate referee appraised. And so that's why it's really important when you're getting a home in particular appraised by a realtor, that if there are defects in the home, that you give the probate referee all that information so there's a proper valuation. Because you don't want the probate referee to go and look at comps on houses that maybe are in much better condition than the house you're dealing with in the estate, and then it may be impossible to get that 90% of value, right?
Yeah, right.
And so then you may have to go back and get a corrected inventory and appraisal from the probate referee.
Which adds more time to the process.
Adds more time,
correct. And so speaking of time, how long is what's the typical timeline or process here with this?
Typically, you file your petition for probate. It takes about 4 to 5 weeks to get your hearing on and get appointed. Then you have 120 days for creditors to make their claims against the estate, assuming you're completely administered, everything's been dealt with when that 120 days is over.
Right.
You can file your petition to close shortly thereafter. takes another 4 or 5 weeks to get your hearing. So on the inside date, you could say 6, most likely it's 6 to 8 months if everything goes smoothly.
Oh, okay, there you go, smoothly. Okay, good. Well, so if somebody has more questions about probate, what's the best way to reach you?
They can call me on my direct line, which is 805-604-4112, or go to the Nelson Comus Kettle and Kinney website and look me up that way, and email me.
Great. Hey, well, thanks again for coming today. Appreciate it. And if you have more questions about buying or selling, give me a call, Harold Powell, 805-339-3516. Have a great day.